Joe Zekas from New Home Notebook and YoChicago. I'm sitting here with Dave Hanna, who's, never get the titles right, Dave, managing broker?
Managing partner.
Partner.
For Prudential SourceOne Realty here in Chicago.
And you have a side job as the
As
president
the current president of the Chicago Association of Realtors.
Okay.
You have to look at the social cost. Blighted neighborhoods are going to be more of a problem when you have large buildings halfway up out of the ground or out of the ground, now sitting vacant or almost, largely vacant. You have condominium projects where you've got 7 occupied units out of 40 and no ability for a buyer to get a loan to move in there today. Absolutely none. What happens to those property? Well, I can tell you, those property owners struggle and eventually they have to walk away. And now you've got an empty 40-unit building, and what are you going to do with it?
What should be done?
I think you've got to come up with lending guidelines that take into account what's happening at least in a regional level. Get some of those barriers out of the way. If condominiums, if someone can demonstrate that condominiums have been a good, solid, and well-performing asset in the Chicago marketplace, then why shouldn't the loan rate be the same as it is for a single-family house or for a multi-unit building? Why should that buyer be forced to pay a premium? Why in a neighborhood where, at the behest of the community, you maintained storefront level, 2-3 story building heights because you want to keep the neighborhood character and not have these dungeon streets because of towering buildings on each side, and now have federal lending guidelines that say that building's 4 stories tall. The city wanted to maintain a flow of retail and foot traffic on the street level, so they said you have to have commercial space down there. You've got to have retail users, right. Which means a 4-story building, that first floor is 25% of the footprint. Now suddenly there's a federal guideline that says if a building's got 25% of its floor plan being occupied as by commercial or retail space, it will not qualify for a loan under our program.
Wow, are you telling me that?
And that's a fact today. That's a reality. I've got emails, Joe, from people in
Belmont Avenue.
People living in Bucktown and Lakeview saying, I live in a 4-story building or I live in a 3-story building and I've got a commercial space on the first floor and I can't move. I got a guy who comes to me with 25% down and an 850 credit score, and they can't get a loan to buy my condominium because of these guidelines. And those are the kinds of things that don't take into account lending guidelines that take in not at all the nuances of the local marketplace.
Let me step you through this because this is pretty serious stuff. Are you saying those properties simply can't be sold?
I'm saying that you've got to find a lender that's going to hold the loan in their portfolio, and in the current marketplace, in the climate the banks are functioning in, they don't want to hold anything. I mean, their capital requirements are so tight that no one wants to have anything in their portfolio. They need to move it out. That's what the only way they're going to turn the money over is if they can bundle the loan and sell it in the secondary marketplace. Well, if you don't qualify under those guidelines, then that loan's not saleable. So unless if you've got a dad or a uncle or a cousin who owns a bank and he wants to hold your $250,000 condominium note, sure, you're good to go. But otherwise, you've got a real problem because even the local community banks aren't in a position to carry that kind of property on their own books. They need to move it off.